Big news just dropped. Stefon Diggs is out for the year, torn ACL, and we got to break down the Houston Texans. They got the Jets this week. They got them on Thursday night. That's a big matchup. Also going forward, Nico Collins should be back soon, but we got to see what's going on with the other wide receivers. Of course, Dell is good, but we got to break this down. But before we do, you need to click that subscribe button right now. I'm here when the news is hot, breaking down these teams, breaking down these depth charts, helping you out with your fantasy football pickups with this You Need series. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. Do not disappoint Ric Flair. But Stefon Diggs is out for the rest of the season. We know Nico Collins is going to be back soon. But this offense now has massive changes, especially for the short term. We do not know what this is going to look like. We can look at the numbers and guess, but we do not know what this is going to look like going forward. Xavier Hutchinson is the first name to bring up as the next man up due to the recent workload since Nico Collins has been out, because he's been running the snaps, he's been running the routes out of this wide receiver depth chart. I also want to point out Dalton Schultz has been getting a lot of work as well. You might be just running up on him for your fantasy football teams. But Xavier Hutchinson has been getting a lot of work and running a lot more routes since Nico Collins has been out over these last 3 games. 43 routes ran and running a 41.3% route participation rate. Not a huge cog in the offense. They got to change this whole thing up because Xavier Hutchinson runs different routes and is in a different role than Stefon Diggs, so it's not going to be a one-for-one type of deal. And when you're looking at Xavier Hutchinson's work rate, he's getting a 10 ADOT, 10 yards downfield every time he's targeted, so he's pushing it downfield a little ways. That's solid to look at, but it's also an indicator that Stefon Diggs is going to be replaced by either John Metchie or Robert Woods. Robert Woods, coming back from the injury, going to step in and might get some of that workload. John Metchie got some extra workload last week as well. We're going to deep dive them. But when you're looking at Xavier Worthy here, big-time prospect from Iowa State, a lot of people were expecting him to get drafted a little bit higher than what he did in the 2023 NFL Draft. 1,100 yards that year in 2022 and 6 touchdowns. And he can push it downfield. He's not really a deep threat, more like a deep contested catch guy. Not a guy that's going to break off a lot of yards after the catch, but a guy that can test it downfield with some big playability when the ball's in the air with sticky hands. Xavier Hutchinson went in the 6th round, 4.53 40-yard dash. We have decent size. We're 6'2". We got some length there. We're never going to be a top-tier talent in the league, but we got enough talent to get the job done with the right workload. We got the skills to do it, but can we put it together when the lights are on? Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, is that crafty veteran who's been productive throughout his career, who's been in the league forever, and can get the job done, can create the separation, has played for a few different teams, and is a guy that you just throw out there and you know what's going to happen. He's going to be dependable. He's going to read the coverages. He's going to get open. That is the type of player Robert Woods is. I would not be surprised if he jumps in route participation rate, waiting for Nico Collins to come back. And just looking at what he's been doing on the field, he had a 72% snap share in week 4. Week 5, just 24, and then we were dealing with a foot injury, and then we come back in week 8, we get a little bit of run. Robert Woods is a candidate here. He's a huge candidate. We've got 2 targets in this game. We got a little bit of work here, but he is a candidate here. And over the course of his career, even with the Texans, he has been productive to some degree. Not groundbreaking or anything like that, not elite, but he can get some run in the offense. That is what he's proven. Robert Woods could be a guy getting it. However, we got John Metchie, former 2nd round pick coming back from leukemia. If you want somebody to root for, if you want a player to root for, if you want a comeback story, John Metchie could be your guy, the 2nd round pick from Alabama, who was a good route runner coming out for the draft. We get some injuries, we get leukemia, we get hit with everything. And we're still fighting to get back on the field. We're on the field last week, getting some opportunity. John Metchie is a player to root for nonetheless. Maybe not in fantasy football you're picking him up, but in your mind you're like, I'm rooting for this guy. This guy's fighting against the odds. John Metchie could be that guy that if he hits, the storyline's going to be there. Last week, we caught 3 balls for 29 yards. We were in on 28% of the snaps. We got 4 targets. There's nothing concrete with Bobby Trees and John Metchie right now. One of those 2 guys are going to get some extra run. You might catch a carousel effect here between these wide receivers behind Dell. Behind Dalton Schultz, Xavier Hutchinson is going to be out there doing his role. He's going to be out there on the outside, one-on-one, contested catches, swinging it deep. But we got Robert Woods, John Metchie here. One of those guys are going to get some extra run in the offense. Which one is it going to be? We're looking at this offense on the long term here. And the long term isn't that long, honestly. Nico Collins is going to come back. Nico Collins, if you're going to buy a wide receiver off this team, I buy him on the high, like at a discount. I would try to do so. I would kick those tires so hard right now because he's going to get concentrated targets. This offense was very concentrated between Stefon Diggs and Dell. Because look at the routes ran between these 2 wide receivers. 87 and 82 in the last 3 games. The route participation rate was just with Dell and Diggs. After that, it was a big fall off. It wasn't worth happening for the other wide receivers. Dell's going to be a big get here. Obviously, but we're not here to state the obvious. No one cares about that. Nico Collins is a guy to try to get right now. Should have been a bit ago. Should have been. But see if you can catch a discount. Look at that manager's team. See if they're hurting. If not, it ain't going to happen. But try to kick the tires. See what you can do. On top of that, when you're looking at these wide receivers, it's going to be a headache. You might see a carousel effect here with Dell being the mainstay here, getting the routes. Xavier Hutchinson is obviously going to get his. It might stay close to the same, but maybe a little bit more. Maybe a bump up. Now it's going to be a battle between John Metchie and Robert Woods. That battle might continue. On top of that, Metchie's been seeing some targets here. Robert Woods is a crafty vet. So on top of this, we're going into a Thursday night game against the Jets. Slow-paced team, tough against wide receivers. You're staying away from the ancillary wide receivers unless it's pushing a 50 over under, which I'm going to tell you it's not right now. It's not going to do that. That being said, you're probably staying away from the passing game. You're probably firing up Dell. You're probably firing up some of the ancillary wide receivers on a whim. And all these players are on the whim. Xavier Hutchinson is probably going to run about a 60%, 70% route participation rate. You're probably going to get a mix between John Metchie and Robert Woods. That's what it looks like. It looks like Metchie's going to get some run. He looked good in training camp. Going back to the 2nd round pick, I would not be surprised if he surprises us. If he surprises us and comes out of nowhere. If you think football is scripted, John Metchie is your pickup. However, if you want to play it safe and go after crafty vets, Robert Woods is your guy. More than likely in fantasy football, you're staying away from the ancillary wide receivers. You're going after Diggs. You're waiting for Nico Collins. You're looking at Dalton Schultz. You might gamble and put some chips on these wide receivers. See what happens if you got extra room on your bench. Bye weeks are light this week. Maybe you do so nobody else can pick them up. Maybe you do that. I'm not advocating for either one of them because I know Nico Collins is coming back and he's going to get about 30% target share. Then you're going to get Dell pushing like a 22 to 25% target share and scraps for the rest. Dalton Schultz, we'll see a bump up. Joe Mixon has been hot right now. That being said, you can put chips on any one of them. You got a Thursday game. You got scraps for the wide receivers. You might catch a surprise player here. But if you want a surprise player between Woods and Metchie, Metchie's the fun story. Robert Woods is the veteran. I'm not really going after either. I'm happy for John Metchie, though, getting some opportunity on the field. But when we look at this whole situation, you do not need these ancillary wide receivers unless you want to take a stab at it right now. Take that gamble. However, you need one because you're chasing it. You're in a 16-team league. You're in a deep league. You got to do so. If you got to pick between one, go after John Metchie because he's got a little bit more upside. Robert Woods isn't going to win your year. He's just not. However, if you're playing game to game, and if you want to go for the stable, more known option, Robert Woods is the guy to go for that. However, Xavier Hutchinson's going to be on the field, probably going to be somewhat consistent, might get some jump balls down the field. You got a situation for all of them. Xavier Hutchinson is the easier play due to that. Next, more upside for John Metchie because he's got more unknown, but he's seeing the field. And next would be Bobby Trees because we know about him as a veteran. He's been seeing the field. He's been getting opportunity. But we know this could be a carousel effect. And any one of those ancillary wide receivers, if the game script breaks, could get it. But we're also playing against the Jets this week. Game script shouldn't break. Nico Collins is coming back soon. So let me know what you're doing in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.